So what I've got here is a pipe that when I wrap this copper tubing around it, it makes the coil at the right diameter that I want, which is basically 3/4 of an inch smaller than the diameter, the inside diameter of the stove pipe that this copper is going into. And I've got some clamps to help me hold it and this little tubing bender. So basically you need copper tubing. I like 3/8 refrigerant line. Doesn't really matter. You can go too small where it restricts the flow. The smaller the tubing is, the greater heat exchange you get out of it because you have more copper to water ratio. But smaller than 3/8 is going to restrict your flow a bit. So I've made them as big as 3/4 all the way down to 3/8, and I like 3/8 the best. It's a lot easier to work 3/8 copper versus 3/4 copper as well. First thing I'm going to do is roll the copper out so there's a good bit of it that's out straight. This stuff is pretty forgiving as long as you don't kink it. And you can work that copper without one of these tubing benders. But when I'm doing a sharp bend, I like to use them just to give me a little extra margin of safety. So I'm bending a right angle into it to start with. You can see that because I want it to extend outside of the coil. So the coil is going to be in a vertical cylinder. I want some of this tubing extending down so I can bend it and come out of the heating chamber. One thing you want to do is this leg that shoots straight down, you want to keep it in the center of your coil. You don't want it to be like protruding out from the edge. So if you had it protruding out from the edge, it might not fit inside of your stovepipe or whatever you're going inside of. I'm going to use some electrical tape to be an extra pair of hands for me to hold this in the basic position I want it to be in. And now the fun begins. The first little bit is the hardest to do. Because everything is trying to fight you. All right, so we're past the hardest part, getting it started. And you'll notice that the tubing will flatten out on you a little bit. That's totally fine. You want to keep it as far from being kinked as possible, but a little bit of flattening is expected, and it won't hurt anything. Now, I'm going to want these coils closer together. Don't want them touching because I do want some airflow between them. but I can get a little bit further along and just shove them back this way and then tighten a little bit more. You want at least as much diameter between them as they are, so you get airflow and heat distribution. All right, and for the rest of the bending, I'm going to lock it in at the distance I want, which is, I'm shooting for basically the diameter of the pipe between them. All right, now it's time for me to move this support back this way. And all this is doing is basically just helping me hold the pipe while I torque on it. All right, and that's as much length as we have on this pipe. So the next thing to do is you can either figure out how long you need it to be and then bend this up and pull it back down through the middle, which I may do, or as long as you left enough room, you can turn it down and go straight back down the side of it on the outside. Or if you're using a metal stovepipe, you can make a hole in the top and come out of it at the top, which gives you a little bit easier way of doing convection flow. So I'm gonna stare at it for a minute and figure out which way I'm gonna do it. But there's the coil. Most of it anyway. So it's starting to kink on me here. I'm probably going to cut it off and put a fitting. And then I'd rather do that than have flow restriction. It's not bad, but I'm not sure I can straighten it out. I could possibly put it in the freezer with water in it. I have done that with soft copper before prior to bending it, but I bet if I put it in the freezer with water in it, it might pop it back out. It does not bust the pipe, 100%. I've done that several times. So yeah, I think I'll just cut it and put a fitting in it. But there she is. This will go in the stovepipe and it'll make hot water.